Our second day out of Makokou, we traveled east back the way we had come 2 nights before. Our first collecting stop for the day was downstream from a section of water in heavy use by the local villagers. We were given permission to collect here and then started to spread out. The stream was wide but shallow with a sandy bottom, so the members of our group with short boots were able to reach most of the shoreline.
Okay. What you got, rubber boot man?
It's a killer.
If I can zoom. Bueno.
It's a young male.
Cool.
It is cool.
One of the local women, who happened to be the chief of the village who gave us permission to fish here, joined into the fun. The next collecting location was deeper with a muddy bottom and a lot of plants overgrowing the banks. Collecting here without high waders would be difficult. When we decide to collect at a new location, we first find an easy access point where we can organize our gear. Then we decide the best way to collect in the stream. At this location, we decided to use the seine, because the water was deeper and the fish could easily evade hand nets. Seining is more complicated than simply pulling a net through the water. The two people working the net have to plan their pull so that the net forms a pocket and so that the fish are driven toward a bank where they can be trapped. The lead line on the bottom of the seine must be in contact with the stream bed at all times so no fish can escape under it. When the pull has reached the bank, care must be taken to drag the lead line up to the highest point of the stream bed as possible. If there is a lot of structure or if the bank is undercut, someone needs to beat the plants to drive the fish into the net.
Okay.
Pulling up a seine is always a moment of anticipation. You never know what you will find. Once the seine is up, everyone standing around the net will get the fish out as quickly as possible. This pull yielded one of our target species for the trip, Parananochromis ornatus.
Here's another one too.
One advantage of having a large group of people is that someone without waders can make use of the chemical test kit. The water parameters at this location were pH 5.0, a conductivity of less than 25 microsiemens, and 0 carbonates. The temperature was 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Once a target species is known to be in the river, we may spend hours in this one location. It's time for the seine to go back to work. As you can see, the water here is deep enough that only a few people can work at one time.
Very, very pretty map of rafting stuff. Yeah.
Everyone else pretty much stands around taking a look at what the seine hauls up. Back at the hotel, the fish are prepared for travel. They are stored in cups for a few days so that water can be easily changed. And then they are packed in breather bags where they will stay until they get home. On our last day working out of Makokou, we planned to drive as far east as possible, making one for certain stop at a location we knew of. Unfortunately, the day dawned rainy. Wet roads in Gabon are treacherous, so we were forced to wait until the driver decided that the roads were safe. Another setback. We had no idea when or if the driver would arrive, but there is always something interesting to look at in Africa. Once we finally got underway, the day was more than half over, so we decided to at least make it to the known location. 24 hours earlier, this logging track would have been passable, but after the rain, it was too slick. So we parked the van and prepared for a long hike into the river. This area is a region where small lumber cutters are logging trees. The wood ends up being used locally, and the cleared land is used by villagers to produce crops. This type of lumber cutting is much more sustainable than the massive clear cutting that has deforested most of West Africa, much of South America, and almost all of the Asian rainforests. But it is not pretty to look at. After a quick bite to eat, we set off to find a collecting location. Walking here was difficult because the red clay soil quickly coated our shoes. These are frog eggs that were laid in a puddle left from last night's rain.
The last days are just fine.
These unfinished dugout canoes were full of rainwater and frog spawn, plus 2 fishing spiders that were preying upon the tadpoles.
I just wanted to take some photos because maybe I will not get. Yeah. So.
This hike turned out to be a spider gold mine for Michael's Spider-Man cedar.
No, that's not needed. It's like you know the.
Ready? Here he comes.
Michael and I also spotted a young tuku, a type of common hornbill struggling to escape some tangling vines along the side of the road.
The baby Turok.
We have it.
I was able to get the baby bird safely relocated back into the deeper forest. After a hike of more than a mile, we caught up with the rest of the group at a very promising looking stream. The water here was swift and cool, but also very acidic and full of tannins. There were a lot of submerged logs, and walking through the water was difficult because you could not see the bottom. This was one of the most pristine locations we collected at during the entire trip. But sometimes the prettiest locations are not the best for fish collecting.
Catch anything, Milo?
No.
Was it worth the crawl?
Well, we got some wormrids, we got some little epiplates, but pretty sparse.
Not even our professional collector, Cyril Denning, could salvage the day.